Eggskin leaned out of the medbay with both scaly hands full of disassembled electronics. "Are you free to run a quick errand?" they asked with the air of someone hoping the answer was yes. "Sure," I said, stopping in the hall. "Did something break?" I thought it was fixable, but no. Eggskin rotated a couple of pieces and fit them back together, revealing what looked like part of a med scanner. Waste of time. At least this isn't the good one for diagnosing, just the one for checking boxes. But we do need a replacement if you can get it. I mentally ran down the list of stores I'd spotted on the space station. Yeah, I think I saw an electronics place that should have those. And we're not going to leave for a while yet. Excellent, thank you. Eggskin looked relieved. I'd go myself, but I have several other items in need of a tune-up. No problem. I'll let the captain know, then be right on it. With a wave from me and further thanks from Eggskin, I headed off to find the captain. Warm light spilled from the crew lounge as I passed. I mentally patted myself on the back for moving my sun lamp in there for everybody to enjoy. Humans may need their vitamin D, but heat seekers craved warmth and didn't always want to ask for it. Paint was currently curled up on the biggest couch, along with Telly, a pile of mottled orange scales and mismatched fur. The cat had also started in just my quarters, but moved on to spend time in the rest of the ship. They looked awfully happy there in the light of the tiny, hovering, artificial sun. Maybe I'd bring a book in and take a seat on the other couch later. Right now, I had a bioscanner to find. And while it would have been perfectly ironic for Captain Sunlight to be basking in the lounge as well, she was elsewhere. I found her in the cargo bay, double-checking a new stack of boxes with Z. She held a clipboard in her scaly yellow hands while he moved things with his shiny purple pincher arms. They were a study in contrasts. When I told her where I was going, she was glad to hear it. Eggskin said there was something wrong with that scanner. She agreed with a nod. I wondered why they were using the good one earlier. Go ahead, I'll make a note of the payment. Righto. I left a pair of them to rearrange the boxes, trusting that the captain would remember to note the payment later. Her memory was good, and she'd been in charge of the finances even before getting promoted. The previous captain had only been good at delegating. When he got politely booted off the ship for incompetence, everyone agreed that Sunlight should take over. She hadn't felt like giving someone else more work to do when she was already familiar with the ship's record-keeping, so she just did both. She was good at both. It worked out well. I was good at other things, and one of them was recognizing when human-run stores were likely to have quality products. Luckily, there was one such store in the nearest commerce sector. I left the ship and strolled along a moving sidewalk at a delightfully fast pace, passing station-goers of a range of species, many of which were content with regular walking speed. One mesmer rushed past in a blur of coppery bug legs, exoskeleton liberally decorated with metal inlays and their attitude suggesting they were late for a flight. The various heat-seekers, Frillians, and others gave them a wide berth. The hum of a high-end jetpack made me duck, worrying I'd get accidentally kicked in the head. But no, it was higher than I'd thought. And the human using it only had one leg, which probably helped my odds anyway. I wonder if that came from the same place I'm going, I thought. It seemed likely since my destination was just coming into view past the big media store. Under the space station's vaulted ceiling and silver and blue color scheme, the earthly electronics emporium was an eye-catching collection of green circuitry. The big front windows had a whole section on jetpacks and hoverbelts. I wondered if they were made by the same manufacturer as the ones Captain Sunlight had been looking into for a client. Possibly. But we didn't want to wipe out all the stock in this place. Not when the client was content to wait while we gathered the rest of their order from the planet we were scheduled to visit next. All in good time. Right now, bioscanners. I stepped off the moving sidewalk with a careful eye for momentum, and I didn't stumble. Upholding human reputation, go me. With my head high, I entered the earthly electronics emporium. It was very green inside too. Not quite as bright as the outside, but somebody had really decided to lean in on the color scheme. I strolled between green shelves designed to look like circuit boards on green tiles that glittered with LEDs, under ceiling lights that were mostly white, just with enough green paint around them that they could have been green too. At least the labels were easy to read. There were a few other people in the store, mostly a group of humans chatting by the counter. It sounded like one was teaching the others a space shanty, which just made me smile. Then I found what I was looking for and I grinned in triumph. Got it. Let's see here. Good for everything from fleas to termites to truly exotic problems. That sounds promising. I read the label thoroughly and decided it was exactly what our courier ship needed for checking the crates we brought on board. We hadn't had to deal with an accidental infestation yet, well, not one that a cat or two couldn't solve and we didn't want to. I took it up to the counter. When I got there, I was surprised to recognize the guy singing the shanty. When he caught sight of me, he broke off with a smile. Hey, good to see you. Thanks so much for the advice. The animal calls and the caffeine went perfectly. Awesome. Good to see you too. I set down the scanner so I could return the hand clasp and hug while he introduced me to his friends, including the guy behind the counter. He told them, "This is the one I told you about, the human who's done everything." Well, I said humbly, getting immediately talked over as Oscar told the others about how his large and intimidating alien crewmates had been disappointed that he didn't live up to all the stories they'd heard about human antics, which had all, somewhat embarrassingly, been about me. But then she told me that imitating animal calls was impressive. And it was. I called in things for them to hunt. And they were amazed, and she's the one who told me that the mighty were lightweights on caffeine. He grinned while they all chuckled. You already know how that went. I was privately glad to see him so animated and social, since the only other time we'd met, he'd been pretty dejected about his lot in life. I asked for details on his adventures, and he was happy to tell them, with the other humans chipping in to add that they touched base regularly now, since Oscar's ship was making regular stops at this station, and most of them lived here. Are you staying long? Oscar asked me. You should really meet Astor. He's been writing songs about human stuff, and he's probably got some of your legends in there. He just started one about caffeine, thanks to me. He beamed in pride. That's great. I'd love to, but we're leaving in a little bit, I said. Maybe next time we stop by. I hope so. His songs are really good. I was just telling these guys about the new one. Have you heard it yet? He launched into a melody. Faye's pirate ship was the scourge of the spaceways, stealing goods with their threats and their gunplay. The scariest ship that you ever did see, until they met the skunk. I snorted and covered my mouth, eyes wide. I didn't want to say it, but somehow he guessed. Don't tell me, Oscar declared, stopping the song. Somehow that was you too. Not directly, I protested. And maybe there are other skunks out there. Keep going. He sang the rest of the song, which told the story of some foolhardy pirates who didn't believe the rumors of a merchant vessel with a hazardous earth creature on board. They wound up having to abandon their ship and let it fall into the nearest sun, ending their days as the smelliest ne'er-do-wells that planet had ever seen. I applauded along with everyone else. That is a great song. And I don't know if that's the skunk I knew or not. I did give one to a human on a merchant ship, but it had its stink gland removed, so maybe it's a different one. An older woman laughed. Or maybe Astor took some storytelling liberties with the song. It wouldn't be the first time. Oscar shook his head, still grinning. Maybe. Then it turned into a storytelling session about skunk anecdotes, and while I could have happily enjoyed that conversation for quite a while, I did have a ship to get back to. The guy behind the counter rang up the sale for me, charging it to the ship's account successfully. What a great name, he said, reading off his screen. Gotta love a shit called Slap the Stars. I told him it was named after the human tradition of high fives. That derailed the conversation even further, and it was with real regret that I had to leave. A couple of the others said they had places to go as well. Casual hugs for everyone, and suddenly it was like being back home for the holidays. After several tight embraces, I realized I'd been missing that and not realize. I said goodbye to my fellow humans and promised to check in next time I was in town, then took the bioscanner back to the ship. The moving sidewalk was just as quick in this direction. Paint and Telly were still in the lounge when I passed. I gave Eggskin the scanner, checked in with the captain at the cockpit, then grabbed a book from my room. Mind if I join you? I asked Paint. Sure, there's plenty space. She uncurled enough to wave at the broad expanse of couch. Telly made a feline merp, then put her head back down. I found the sunlamp's controls on the table, next to the box of accessories, and turned it up just a smidge. Then I lay down between Paint and the back of the couch, with my book above her head. She made happy noises about the extra warmth, and Telly mearped again. From the door to the hall, something hissed. Then Z's voice complained, "Why is it so bright in here?" Paint didn't look up as she declared basking is a time-honored form of enrichment. I failed to see the appeal. Hang on, I said, sitting up long enough to grab an effects adapter from the box on the table. I'd checked before. These would stay in place even with just half of the cover. I clipped on the most colorful and glitterific galaxy adapter to the far side of the sun lamp, turning half of the lounge into a space disco that any self-respecting mesmer would love. Z was no exception. "Now that is lovely," he said, clicking his way into the room. "Why didn't you do that to start with?" He made himself comfortable with a media screen while I settled back into place with my book and cuddle puddle. Mur's voice said from the hallway, "Why is it so bright in here?" Z said, "Enrichment." Paint said, "You can join us if you like." I smiled. "I have a great new space shanty that I think you'll enjoy.